I don't understand. It's like hunting. Like I'm not getting up at the crack of dawn to get somewhere to.
Right.
I mean, I'm already annoyed. I don't want to do it. Hey guys, Alex Rich.
Ben Poremba.
Hey, we are excited to let you know that we have episodes of our podcast, Jews in the Lou, dropping every other week, and you're not going to want to miss. We have some great guests lined up.
Amazing. And while I have you, I want to thank the St. Louis Jewish Light for their incredible partnership and support of our podcast. St. Louis Jewish Light doing amazing work for our community, keeping us informed with stories, with updates.
And visit stljewishlight.org. Subscribe to their newsletter. They'll keep you up to date on everything going on.
Absolutely. See you soon.
Spark a joint with these people, huh?
I would like.
With these
I
guys?
just bought one.
Do you have one on you?
I do have one on.
You want me to set up a
I have
courtyard?
4 on
Should we
me.
go outside and do this one?
Why would it be smoky in here?
It'll be very smoky and smelly in here, but it's your store. It's your restaurant.
Let's keep it towards the end of the interview because we don't want to do it inside and it's too cold outside.
But I could just, if I just take these outside.
I'll do it either.
Call
I'll
me-
do
call
it
me if you need
anywhere.
me.
I will.
We
I
could
will.
go into the kitchen. We could
No,
roll
this
this
is
thing
cool.
into the kitchen. Anyway.
We'll get to that after.
You don't know Kevin Glazer.
I don't. I'd like to know
It might
Kevin.
be better. But you know what? It's something to look forward to. That's a good idea. Thank you.
Kevin,
You
what
have
the
to
hell?
understand- Okay, go ahead.
I was gonna ask, what the hell do you like? What do you do?
That is a good question. I'd say I live in the creative realm.
Okay.
I'm in that sort of.
Kevin's an artist.
He's gonna be modest. Maybe I should ask you what he.
He lives in the creative realm.
I like
He's
it.
an artist.
I'm an
Kevin
artist.
is an accomplished, accoladed, I don't want to say famous artist in town.
I
like
will
it.
be saying they are. In fact, if you go on Instagram, you follow me. They found a book from 20 years ago that they'll page through, so you can actually see my early work. And I'm doing a book. This is my 20th anniversary of what I would say. My first major sale when I was in a gallery and I considered myself part of that world. That would be 20 years. So
Hey,
I'm come 2025.
So
2015 was 2005. Yeah. So.
Kevin is about a decade older than me. Look how good he looks.
You look great. You drink matzo ball soup every day?
No, but I will say
What do you do to your
I
face?
make a fantastic matzo ball soup.
Here he goes.
In all honesty, I really do.
I drink broth every day for my
do you
for
really?
my face.
Interesting.
You like a hard ball, soft ball?
I like a very soft ball, and in fact, it's a secret. You know what? I'll divulge this secret on Hanukkah. I will. My mother passed this on to me, which my grandmother, my dad's mother, passed on to her. We'll get to my sister did that 23andMe, and so I would never do that, but I figured I've got to be close to her. So, in the end result, which I'm happy to disclose, I was more Ashkenazi Jew than all the other things. So as far as I'm concerned, that's what matters, right?
Yeah.
I am mostly that.
So what's the secret to the matzo ball?
I'm going to tell you. The secret to the matzo ball is that because my mom wasn't Jewish, is the whole point. But the secret
mom
to the
wasn't
matzo-
Jewish?
No. But I've only known my Jewish side based on her family's ignorance, and so as far as I identify as Jewish. In fact, I have the Jewish star on my wrist to
Show it
prove
to the
it.
camera.
Show it to the camera.
Okay, that's actually the Kabbalah symbol. It's one of the 72 names of God, and it is also the Kundalini symbol for happiness. So this
Yeah.
is the key to happiness is my hand.
Wow.
As a creative.
That's very
thing.
creative.
So there you go. And
Very
then you see the
creative.
chai, there's a baby chai in his head right there.
So was the key to the good matzo ball to not be
No.
Jewish?
I'm about to get to it. Sorry.
Okay.
Eventually, these dots all do connect. I do the mix. I take some of the season packet that you're supposed to put in to make the soup. I mix into the matzo. Like when you buy the packet, I mix into the matzo mix, and then I do the thing. I put it in a freezer so it gets harder faster, and I don't boil it in water. I actually cook it right on top of the soup. So
What do you mean on top of the soup?
Meaning that the matzo balls come out of the freezer. I make the little balls with water.
cook them in the soup.
And I cook them in the soup, and I just let the pot top on, and I let the whole thing cook forever. And then when you take it
How
off,
often do you make it?
Usually when someone's sick or like once every 2 to 3 months. Sometimes I just crave it.
Yeah.
That's why I make it. But it is really like I literally thought, now this is a matzo ball stew. If I got this at a restaurant, I would come back and get it again.
Well,
It's
you
that
gotta
good.
try my matzo
And I'm
balls.
also I like carrots and celery, so I'm very heavy on the carrots and celery.
You gotta try my
I'm a fan of the heavy carrot salad.
Really?
Yeah, I like
just
heavy.
like the broth.
Yeah, see,
But
the
do you
broth is
do-
in
you
all
do
honesty,
carrots
the
and
broth.
celery in yours?
Yeah, but I like the
I
broth.
just see,
Yeah.
and it's funny because the broth is my least.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
I wouldn't say least favorite.
No
I'm
worries.
not gonna say least favorite. It's just it's not my most favorite.
Okay, so Kevin, let me just tell you what we're doing
Tell me what we're doing.
and why you're here.
I got that we were celebrating Hanukkah. That's true.
No, we're not more than celebrating Hanukkah.
Okay,
That's
good.
part of it.
That's
That's
good.
part of it. We're taking Hanukkah as kind of the pretext to doing this, but what we're celebrating is Jewish life in St. Louis.
I agree.
And
100%.
we're having conversations with prominent or figures in Jewish life in St. Louis, people who are Jewish, who contribute, influence,
But
are
actually
part of
live in the community.
Yeah, but live in the community. That are part of the fabric of St. Louis community in general. They happen to be Jewish.
Right.
And
Well, I get like for example, I helped design it. In fact, I built the pillar with the signage with my own hands for the Chabad house on Delmar.
is that right?
The Anne and Morris Lazaroff.
Lazaroff.
I hung those letters with my own little hands on the building.
Wow.
So I think I forgot about that, but I drive by that building all the time. I'm very proud of it. It is a beautiful building, and there's supposed to be a sculpture that we haven't gotten to yet. But anyway, yeah. See, so that's I never really. I've started. This has made me start thinking about my role in the Jewish culture of St. Louis, and I have contributed. I didn't realize it, but good for you.
Well, just your presence.
Your presence is all
Just your presence.
we're just celebrating that, no
Right.
matter your background, no matter who you are, no matter what your job, Jewish people do many different things.
Well, it's true, but interestingly enough, it is funny that number one, this is the truth that as I growing up, when I went to Arizona State, I lived in Los Angeles. I'm in New York a lot, and I would say my closest, oddly, just always, my friends were always Jewish. My closest friends were always Jewish, which I never asked. I was never in a Jewish situation.
Yeah.
It was almost like we just, like an avatar. How do I put this? Like I see you sort of situation.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, we've been talking about it all day with
Yeah.
our
So,
other guests.
it's just a side note, but it happens to be true. And
Well,
then
here's the thing.
Yeah.
We see each other, we recognize each other, we gang up. That's as simple as that.
You're playing for the same team is ultimately
Playing
what
for the
we've
Yes,
been
I would agree.
what we've been discussing, and then you're automatically drawn to then have that person's back, regardless of the situation, even if it's a complete stranger, because of that Jewish connection.
100%. And what's interesting is that just because of this Hanukkah thing, I am currently halfway through my 59th birthday. So on my 59th birthday in May, I decided to have a 365-day Hanukkah for myself, where every day, because we celebrated both until I was older, and then then we just got whatever. But my dad, who was 100% Jewish, 100% Ashkenazi Jew, I guess you would call it. I'm not sure I know what that is, but I did think it was it was odd that on the 23andMe, it's the only that is a section. Anyway, but yeah.
Are you gonna light up the menorah?
You know what? I do have a menorah somewhere, and the answer to that's yes. I'm going to. I'm 100% going
If you
to.
weren't planning on it,
I'm going to.
we're gonna make a point this year.
You know what? I wasn't planning on it either way, but I'm 100% going to do it. In fact, you know what? I'm going to go out and buy myself a brand new menorah.
There you go.
Do it. I'm
Bravo.
going to. In fact, I'm going to try to find the nicest menorah because
You should
I
make
do.
one as an artist.
As a side
Yeah,
note,
you know what?
I really should paint.
You should
a
make
menorah.
one.
I will say that people don't know, but I hide all sorts of things in my art. Which, if you look, you'll see all. I mean, I'm a collage artist, so I layer.
Kevin-
So the Star of David, which I happen to say in my mind is a very artistic sort of. I'm very big on symmetry and
Yeah.
whatever, and so if you look at different things when they talk about like how people paint people's faces and stuff, the Star of David's used in a lot of different, I'd say, engineering sort of. It's it's perfect. It is perfect.
Yeah.
Anyway, and I just thought,
It's an equilibrium.
and it was funny because when I thought of this 365-day Hanukkah, I mean, it really was all those things at Hanukkah. It doesn't have to be a big present. It doesn't. It could be a little present. It was just me doing something extra for myself that I wouldn't maybe do, and then appreciate
You know the
what I
story?
have. So there you go.
How well do you know the story of Hanukkah? Can I tell you the story of Hanukkah?
I know it has something to do. Yes, I'd like to hear it.
Yeah.
I know it has something to do with the
This is
candle
his
not
favorite.
going out. So let me
Yeah.
hear it.
Well, the Maccabees fought the Romans. Temple was destroyed. They only had enough oil
Right.
for one day. The oil lasted for 8 days. It's kind of like, it's kind of
miracle.
like, it's absolutely a miracle. But it's one of those things where you have something very small and you cherish it and you make it last, like a relationship, like whatever
Right.
it is. It's like, you're a cannabis lover, promoter.
Big fan.
It's like you have. I don't.
It's basically like you have a joint where you have one hit left in it, but you end up getting
Yes,
like
and you know
8
what?
more
I'm-
hits
I know
out of
it.
it.
This is
something
exact-
like that.
this is
Or
exact-
like
this is-
you're high for 8 days.
This is
something
exactly
high for 1 day.
100%. And this is exactly why.
You gotta make them understand.
This
you
is
know?
I'm trying to make
no,
it
this is, I get it. This is an example of the juice because
It's
the
like when
thing.
you take a 10 milligram edible,
Right.
but it feels like 100 milligrams.
Right, but
you
in
go.
in my mind, because truthfully, I remember both. Like some of the time, it would be like I don't care. My dad was big on like he would give me those balsa wood planes, that you spun with the rubber band and would fly and stuff. It could literally be that. I don't even care, but it is true. I looked more forward. Like that was like a prolonging pleasure thing. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Christmas is like a Band-Aid ripped off and it's like it's done. And
Yeah.
But Hanukkah did every day. It was just like special. And so yes, I guess I'd say I'm a big fan of celebrating me and having a good time. And so that to me is exactly why I use that term 365 Hanukkah, because I think the Jews in general are a more of a glass half full people, where I think that my wife, again, I'll use her as an example, and she will clearly tell you that she's a glass half empty person. She is not Jewish, and I find that to be common amongst her people.
Yeah.
So that it is a point of view, right?
Yeah. We
But yes, but by the way, but I like it. Yes.
Whatever it is, and make it last.
Yes. Every morsel, enjoy every part, every bit, stretch it out. Positive
Sounds like
energy.
yoga.
It is like
A little bit like yoga,
it
Hanukkah
is.
yoga. Is there a night, you're talking about 365 days, in that 8-day window, did you, I don't know that I specifically did, grow up where one day was more important than another? Was the first day, did you celebrate more on the first day? Did you do more on the 8th day?
The way it began. Well, go ahead. I would like to hear
you
yours.
go,
No,
you
no,
go.
you
No,
go.
no, you
Well,
go.
mine's really quick. Because my parents wanted to, they were smart and they understood, I think, this message, or my dad did, whoever, but they prolonged it. So we got one big gift on the end. So all the ones leading up were little, like a Hansel and Gretel. Like, they were leading us to this one big thing.
So for us, I have to say, the first day is a big one because you want the donuts, you want the latkes, you want the whole.
Oh, so it's a food experience.
It's a
for
food
you.
experience.
See, it is not.
Everything
Nothing
is
is
a
a
food
food
experience.
experience to me. So.
And then the second day, you still have like a little bit. By the third day, I can't look at a donut anymore. Like I'm just. And so I take a few days off. I mean, I still like the menorah.
Yeah.
I eat light, but it's the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and all of a sudden, I crave it again.
Right. And then you finish strong.
And then I finish.
I'm gonna tell you, I have never heard anyone describe. I have never heard it related to food. It makes perfect sense to me. But
Oh yeah,
I don't-
latkes.
Well, I don't
you know what a latke is?
I do know. I like a potato latke.
Do you like it with sour cream or applesauce?
Sour cream and not applesauce. And Lester's I used to always get it at Lester's.
You know
I don't think
how-
they have it on there anymore.
So I do it with sour cream, and I like a big, spoonful of caviar right on top.
Let's see how I would do that. I don't like applesauce, and I have like a texture problem. Maybe I don't like mushy stuff. So.
That's fair.
Yeah.
He knew right away, though. I mean, he
Yeah,
was
I mean,
a
he was on-
confident.
I mean,
it was a
he was-
confident.
It was a no question.
It was a confident answer
It was
for
a no
sure.
question. In fact, and you know what? As a side note, like my favorite treat, which I love halva.
Halva? You gotta try the halva we
I'm
saw.
going. I know I don't really get the Joya kind, but when I'm in when I'm in LA, there's a deli called I can't remember the name of it, where they have the big kind and they slice it
that's
off
what we
and
do here.
stuff. Well, that's fantastic. Again, I can't believe I didn't know. It's probably good because I am also on this 365 day Hanukkah. As a side note, is that I'm seeing if I can be the optimal version of myself at 60. So with medical help and all of those sort of things, I'm so far so good. I'm heading in the right direction.
That's the right way to go.
So we had a lot of interesting people here, obviously, talking to people.
Scott was here earlier. Yeah.
Scott was here earlier.
Had a few yesterday.
So
We've had a
there
lot of
is
good
like,
conversations.
there's like, in my mind, there is like, in American Jewry, there is like the prototypical New York Jew, like Ben Hockman, like Josh Schertz. I mean, those are like New York Jews. If I had to think about Kevin Glazer, he's an LA Jew.
That would be true. That would be true.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
What's the deciding factor that he smokes weed?
No. It's just
It is a
it's
different
vibe.
thing. It is funny. No, I
It's a
mean, my
vibe.
friends that are in LA that are Jewish,
It's a-
that is
it's
a
kind of a
different.
No, absolutely. I do see. I do get
It's a
that.
vibe.
Yeah.
But so
And my friends that are in New York versus my friends that are in LA, yeah, completely different types.
Do you know? Do you?
Well, I'll give you an example. Generally, my friends from the East Coast all are on my page about golf. Like, I think golf is ridiculous, and I can't believe people waste that much time. And I don't understand. It's like hunting. Like, I'm not getting up at the crack of dawn to get somewhere to.
Right.
I mean, I'm already annoyed. I don't want to do it. I learned this in Austin. My buddy, I was at Austin City Limits, and my buddy lives there, and it was a pitch and putt. It was a perfect. You have two pucks. You have a putter and a pitching wedge. You have two things, and they're all like 3 holes. So yeah, you're done in like an hour and a half, like bowling. That's why I like bowling.
Yeah.
I like an immediate gratification.
You don't like to
Instant
hit the ball,
gratification.
rush to your ball, and then to hit it again.
I don't know,
how do you-
wasting
how do
all
you get to the
day.
conversation?
But because my LA Jewish friends all will play golf. Like the LA guys are all golfers. Like they all belong to like a Westwood in LA, and they love golf. Whereas my New York friends are more on my page about golf. I'm just saying I find it. That's just something about the LA Jews. They're a little more gentile than like a hardcore, New York Jew.
do you? Okay, so we're talking about Jewish consciousness, Jewish identity. Are you informed by your Judaism, by your Jewishness, not Judaism, but by your Jewishness? Like,
I think so.
do you know any Yiddish terminology? Do you?
Well, I mean, I have studied Kabbalah. And
You have?
I've listened. I've read all the books by Rav Berg. And
Is that right? So bestow some wisdom upon us.
well,
One lesson.
I'll give you one lesson. I think it's the biggest lesson, and I remember this specifically. It's like, and I think
Do
for
we have to
me,
be high to get it?
no,
To
but I
comprehend
do
it?
think it would help.
You need to understand the high mind.
It would help. It probably would help. But, I think what we'll do is we'll tell it, and then we'll get high, and then you can.
Okay.
After
I like that.
you'll
That's
have a
fair, we
chance
can do
to
that.
chew
Yeah, that's
because
fair.
there's a chance you can chew on it, and then you can see the point. But I think for me, and I feel lucky in this respect to be able to do what I do, and my dad, who is no longer with us, both my parents are gone, but my dad, before he died, made this comment to me, like how I take what I can do for granted, and that I think that, it isn't that big of a deal, but it is a big deal. And I do realize that I have the ability to express myself in a way that I can, that there's a manifestation, that there is a physical piece, like nothing exists, or it was a piece of junk, and then it is something someone covets and wants, and that is kind of like magic. So he is right. I think that I took it for granted, and I don't really take it for granted anymore. And I think that the Jewish aspect of that is that the lesson from Kabbalah would be, I'm not someone who tends to covet any or want anything from anybody else, but I do understand this idea, and the lesson being that, like, we'll use 9/11. He uses 9/11 as an example. That when 9/11 happened, it usually takes a catastrophe to pull people together, which is a shame. But everyone forgets anything, and we have one common enemy, so to speak. And then, your neighbor gets a new car, and then you want a new car, and then, it kind of leads us down that same path. But I did understand that, and it's when all the craziness that's going on in the world, and even like in LA with the Floyd and the riots, and was the beginning of people just thinking that it was real. I can literally pinpoint that time when destroying things seemed to be like all of a sudden okay, and it falls into, again, I just think that the Kabbalah and, in my opinion, Judaism in general celebrates the positive aspect and celebrates overcoming hardships and thinking that I've had many moments where I've been in a situation, like, I will just tell you what currently happened last Saturday night. I slept in Gianni Versace's room in his bed. And that was just the craziest thing ever. And in Miami, they were nice enough to invite me. I was a guest, and they put me in his room, and I ate breakfast off his thing. And I just remember thinking,
What size is the mattress?
It's so. I've tried. 30 people could have slept in it because it was at least 15 people wide.
He only got 25.
Double. I mean, let's just say the
more.
pillows were like 6 feet deep, and you could totally hide in between.
Yeah.
There was like 5 rows of pillows. It was crazy, but the size of 10 times the size of a normal king size bed is what I would imagine.
Wow.
2 by 5. I don't know, but I'm no mathematician, but it was a lot.
It's a big bet.
Anyway, my whole point about that was that was a fantastic experience, and I never imagined that I would have. And and being me, where aesthetics are what informs me. I mean, I live my life in an aesthetic way because just the same way food is for you, it's a way for me to express myself, and I just think that. Maybe I do feel like, as a people, we tend to forgive and forget on some level, or I shouldn't even say forgive and forget. Let bygones be bygones, meaning that I feel like
you try to find a little bit of the positive in every situation.
Yes, I just feel, like I said, as before, I feel as a people that were more of a glass half full, and I do think that Kabbalah in general, it's not even a religion. I mean, it does come from Jewish mysticism. I think there are things to be said for the fact that the Dead Sea Scrolls, which were in all honesty, they believe. I mean, there are historians and educators that believe that it is the origin of all languages and always to be. And in Miami at Basel, I did do I kind of literally have been asked this question many times of where the idea for the 7 sins came from, and I don't remember what made me want to make the sins, but I think at first I was interested in the concept of what each one meant and like what was lost.
Kevin was an artist. He exhibited at Art Basel in Miami.
That's awesome.
And the title of his show was Sin Virtue.
Sin and Virtue, yeah.
Sin and Virtue.
And what was interesting is that I realized in these tablets that I basically tore apart and reconfigured were like 16th century Byzantine tablets of an Adam and Eve sort of situation. And the bottom line of that was...
What are the 7 sins?
The 7 sins are this, and it's funny because I kept forgetting this first one.
Number one.
I'm going to give you... We actually did a video, which, if you're from St. Louis, there's a show called El Monstero that plays at the
Sure.
pageant. I am the background graphics for the song "Shine On You, Crazy Diamond," and so they took the 7 sins and they animated them. So one sin kind of goes into another, and then there is a actual song that relates to the sins that was recorded with this video that we debuted at Basel. But I kind of I had to like put them into a context of an order, and I hadn't done it when I was making them. I kept having to look it up, but the first sin, which the Catholic religion, for example, considers us the worst of all, the sins are not religious, first of all. It's not like, I mean, weirdly, I think people associate it with like a Catholic thing, but because they throw the sin word a lot around, but they really are just, what I realized to me is they were like Kabbalah on some level. It was just a way of living together in a community, things you just don't do, sort of like the 10 Commandments, which all of these things, if you actually, it's kind of like, did you ever see the movie Prometheus?
I never did.
It's a great movie, but basically it talks about there are symbols that they have found in caves. This is partially based off the truth. That there was no way that these two civilizations could have had any connection with each other, but they appear in the same. And so it's this idea that, all of this kind of comes from Judaism on some level. If you consider Kabbalah and the early Hebrew script to be, certainly before the Bible, that's for sure. Right. So, that's what I find interesting is that it is a way of life versus being some sort of religious doctrine, and it is really just the fact that, in the sins aspect, the opposite of that sin would be virtue. So the first sin, let's go through the list. Sorry.
Yes.
Pride, which I believe leads to envy, which I believe leads to lust, which leads to greed, which leads to gluttony, which leads to sloth, which leads to wrath in the end. So,
what kind of sin are you?
It's a
if
circle.
you had to wear a hat on your head, because Kevin made hats.
True. I only made the best. I didn't make any sloth or gluttony hats because I didn't feel like those would sell very well.
What was you had pride?
Pride. I didn't make that one either because you know what I did? I thought, by the way, how crazy, if you think about it, there's a certain group of people whose catchphrase and whole mission statement is pride. Which is considered is one of the 7 deadly sins. So, it's an interesting thing. And the way I associated it is what was going on in the world. Like, I made this 2 years ago, and so it's now, but this idea that I think some of the world leaders have, in fact, my friends I have a couple of friends that live in Israel, and I was just in Basel, and I was talking to a couple of galleries that had artists from Israel, and they're not big fans of the government there either. I mean, I'm going to say, we all know there are certain men in the world that believe that they are meant to rule the world. And I think if you believe that you're meant to rule the world, that's a slippery slope. In terms of how, because to me, the idea of thinking that you are more worthy, or it's the idea in my mind, like of the Pope. Do I believe he has any special powers? No. He was a man elected by men. It's like that you can't. I give you powers. Like it's that simple.
Right.
So I just think that and for me personally, I don't want to be in charge of anyone. All of that looks like the worst job ever. So.
I don't know how we got to talk about this philosophical.
Well, because it's when we were talking about the 7 deadly sins, I gave you the order.
We want to lighten things up.
But
here.
anyway, but the truth that I'm gonna flip it, because that was the whole idea. After doing these pieces, I realized that it was the virtuous part that they were trying to show. They were showing the negative side of not having that virtue, as opposed to, greed would.
Did you ever
the opposite would be share. Do you see what I'm saying?
Let me ask you something. Did you ever set foot in a synagogue?
Yes, I've been to services, and I've been to
you like
some
it?
bar mitzvahs. I have to say,
is it spiritual for you?
Yeah, specifically the singing part. But yes, when the rabbi sings, I do find.
What about the singing?
I don't know. I've always been affected by music.
You're more affected if a
Well,
prayer
you're a
is sung.
sensory kind of guy. You're a sensory kind of guy.
Yeah, but so I grew up playing the guitar and singing at the temple and the synagogue, and I guess I, in a way, felt the same way because you can learn. For me, you learn the prayer through music. You know, it's kind of like when you're like those the math songs, like when you're young and you're learning math, like.
Right. Well, you know, an example when I was young, and my parents and I would go to someone's house for like the high holy days or whatever, and they would, I remember this to this day. Like we would learn the songs like they would be like, "Well, hello, Moses. Well, hello, Moses." Like they would use "Hello, Dolly" to explain like why they were waiting for Moses.
Yes.
Like I don't know how else to put it. It's you know, we've missed whatever it is.
100%.
So yeah, so I will say like Schoolhouse Rock, which you guys are too young to know.
That's what I'm looking
But yes,
for.
So
that
you
I
sing
remember
in
the music.
synagogues?
Oh, I grew up playing the guitar.
Like
singing.
for what? Like, give me something.
Like Ashlosha Devarim, you know, like
Keep
all.
going, keep going.
See, look at that.
What's the other one? One of my favorites was Micha Mocha Baili Madonna. You know what I mean? Like
Well, I'll tell you something that's
Do you
interesting.
remember it all? You memorized a bunch of it?
a lot of it. Yeah, a lot of it. You know Rick Reck?
Yeah.
I grew up singing, playing the guitar with Rick Reck. Would travel around the country playing.
It's like Christian rock, but for Jews, Jewish rock.
Exactly. And there's not really like a huge, there's not really a huge market. Like, there's a lot of big name Christian rock singers, and I know people that like. There's some big bands that like are Christian rock, and you'd never know. Like Gavin DeGraw, for example, is like somebody mainstream, like Need to Breathe. It's like they're a Christian rock band, but like I would have never known that. And I like the
See,
music.
Maroon 5 I would consider a Jewish rock.
Well, you got Adam Levine as the
That's
lead
why
guy.
I'm
You
just
have
saying.
to.
It makes me very proud.
I grew up, and I think that through music, it made me enjoy going to synagogue, and it made me want to continue to
That's
be
very
a
interesting.
bigger part of the Jewish community.
That's very
Well, as a
interesting.
side note, let me tell you, because my son, went to Pillar. Like my youngest went to a Catholic school, and so there were times when we would go, we would go to the church,
Yeah.
and I would sit there, and I absolutely understood the difference. Like I felt when you're in a synagogue and they're doing a service, you're part of that service. Where when you're at a Catholic service and the guy's up there, he's there talking down to you. You're not part of it really. He's telling you what you're going to do
It's what I said earlier.
versus being part of the experience.
We're born with guilt. Catholics go to school for it.
By the way, and it's an interesting note. I did just do an interview.
Absolutely.
And someone
That's
asked
funny.
me, both of my parents are gone, and someone asked me why, what drives me to do the art. And I literally don't remember what did before, but there's no question the first thing that came to my mind was
You
I
go to fine art
honor
school?
my parents. No, I went to Arizona State. I have a textile chemistry degree because I also make clothes, and so
That's
clothes
what I wanted to
taught me how to do the art.
What?
be. Fashion designer.
Is that right? You're fashionable.
I wanted to be a fashion designer.
That was originally my goal as well.
Yeah,
That was funny.
I think
That
you
was-
both have. I think.
funny, that was
No, I mean,
originally
I'll
my
for
goal.
myself. I think all three of us have fairly great style.
Well, my point
I
is,
mean, great
You're
style,
on.
unique. Yes.
because you're not just throwing anything on. Like you chose this. That is how you want. You make it. You make an effort to present yourself to the world in a way that you hope is the best version of you. And I
In
think
your own way.
In your own way. And I think that. God, I
This is
wish
the most-
everyone did
This
that.
is the most Jewish Keith t-shirt I've ever seen.
Oh, I have one.
Isn't that something?
I have.
I've
It
never
came in a Jewish cereal box.
I was
It
just.
was-
Why?
it
What
was
was
like-
it? What was the? What,
This
like,
was a gift
I was
from
just
someone
there.
actually, and
Is it actually Keith, or did somebody actually?
no,
No,
it's
it's
really
Kith.
Kith.
I have
Yeah,
one.
They do like a
have it.
Hanukkah collab really
Yeah.
every year. Every
I
year
have
Kith
a
drops
Camp
new shirt, yeah.
High one that it basically.
He would like my.
It's
I
Kith
need to
and-
get him. I have a shirt that says Baruch Atah I'm High.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
There was a place, in
It's not
fact,
good.
there was a place called Sweet Life that was around. It used to be on Del Mar. It was like a streetwear, and the guy was Jewish. And I have his shirt. It says it was called a Sweet Life, but it's all in Hebrew letters. I also have one that is from a really a guy he's a Jewish. I believe he's at least partially African American Jewish guy from New York, and he's got a little concept store called Apartment 4B.
Okay.
And I recently bought a shirt, and it has Hebrew letters on it, and below it says, "Peace to our way of life." And weirdly, again, I'm going to say that I feel, maybe it was because my dad's family took my mom in when my mom's family cut her off when she married my dad, which is why I never knew that side of the family. Probably the reason why I identify more
As Jewish?
as Jewish. But it was definitely it was obvious to see, because it was a big deal for back then in the early '60s, Jewish people wanted their kids to marry Jew. It's I don't think it's as big a deal anymore, but regardless, it was a big deal then, and I think that my mom, again, all my mom's friends and like my parents' friends, were all Jewish. Like my mom, I think I think it helped her actually. She actually went to both my parents lived in U City. She went to Mercy High School, which was the Catholic high school there. My dad went to U City High.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I think it was interesting that, again, lucky her. It turned out that she was the family that she never had. So there you go.
This is interesting. Something I want to digress. You mentioned Adam Levine earlier, and in my mind, all week long, since we're doing this, I'm like trying to think about. I was trying to think about prominent Jewish figures in America, and I totally forgot about Adam Levine.
Yeah, Adam, who's the first Jewish, if you had to think of minus Adam Levine, first Jewish celebrity that comes to your mind?
Alicia
Living.
Silverstone.
That's the one he says. How about that?
Because I thought she was the hottest Jewish girl I'd ever seen. I mean, she
That's our
was.
promo.
I mean, she was.
Wow.
Don't you remember she did an Aerosmith video?
Yes.
That's I think I remember when I learned.
Kevin
of her.
Glazer, you're totally stuck in the 90s, aren't
That's
you?
Well,
hysterical.
that is my. I mean, guys, I
90s was the best.
Let me just say,
Was
I went
that the
to
best decade ever?
83 to 87, and at Arizona State was a pretty good chunk of time.
Is that right?
Yes, and then I graduated, and I met my wife like 4 months later, and I was engaged when I was 21 years old.
Wow.
And I'll be coming up on my 36-year wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
It's just
Congratulations.
crazy.
What do you got?
First Jewish person I think of?
Yeah.
Do you want to know what's pretty funny? Because for whatever reason, this is what comes to my mind is Lenny Kravitz.
That's
Oh
a good
yeah,
one.
that is a good one.
That's a pretty
Because
good one.
it's just, it's one of those ones that surprises everybody if they didn't know it.
Right, kind of like Sammy Davis Jr.
A little bit like Sammy Davis Jr.
But he was a famous Jew. Like he wore Jewishness on his sleeve. You know?
Yeah. No, you know
Me,
it's
Larry
actually
David.
First
Larry
one,
Da-
yeah, Larry.
I mean,
Larry
I
David
think,
was is the first one.
I don't know why. I mean, cause
No, but I
he's-
think it makes sense. He's mainstream.
Well,
He's-
you're younger than me, yeah, for sure. I'm just saying, when I was younger, so you because that show when you're talking about Larry David as his own show on Curb Your Enthusiasm, right?
It's
Not
the best.
as a Seinfeld.
It's the best.
no, even Seinfeld. I mean, Larry David just as a character,
As a
is
person,
just, as a
yeah.
person is the first. Like, ask me, and then Bernie Sanders.
Really?
And the
Well,
interesting
actually,
thing
I'm
about Bernie
going
and
to take
Larry
mine
David-
back.
Do you know what the interesting thing about both of these people? They went on that show on PBS that checks your like DNA. Do you know they're like cousins, like 3 times removed? Larry David and Bernie Sanders are cousins.
Really?
Is that right?
Yeah.
I'm changing my message. I forgot. I literally forgot. And I remember when I saw the movie. It was at the old Creve Coeur Cinema, which we used
And
to
then
look
Barbara
like.
Streisand too.
Right.
She's a good
Well,
one.
this is what I realized. Mel Brooks was actually probably the first Jew, because I remember seeing I guess in Gene Wilder at the same time, but I remember seeing Young Frankenstein.
Yeah.
When I was at that movie theater, and yeah, Mel Brooks. Like my parents, in fact, Jackie Mason, I knew before them. My parents were, you know, I loved, they were very big into comedians. And
Yeah.
So I remember being in Vegas with my parents and seeing Jackie Mason. So I don't know that I put the two together. I do remember specifically when I saw Alicia Silverstone and found out she was Jewish.
That was a pivotal moment.
That was pivotal. Yeah.
In his
She's
young
still
Jewish
hot?
life.
I haven't seen
She's
pictures.
yeah. I mean, she's relatively attractive. I mean, she's you know, like y'all like you know, she's held up well. She's held up probably better than most. She doesn't screw her face up. She hasn't injected with all that stuff. But no, I mean, to me, I think it is 100% a part. You know, like all things, a part of who I am, and so. You know, anyway, when asked why I do the art, it was my reply was just quickly to honor my parents, and I think that is maybe something that I think is much more of a Jewish thing. Is that I inherently, out of nothing they did, because they seemed to pretty much love me unconditionally. You know, I always wanted to make them proud. I mean, I don't know
Family,
where that
yeah.
comes from, 100%.
But it's that sense of pride you were talking about.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that that does come from
Yeah, that's great.
that side.
That's
So,
great.
anyway,
Well, we appreciate you celebrating Hanukkah with us.
yeah. The last thing about the music thing that I was going to say, which is, an interesting thing, which I tell everyone to get to. But recently, last weekend, I was at Broadway Oyster Bar the night before Thanksgiving, and he was covering the Beatles, and it was packed, and I actually had gone to the bathroom. I came in, and the whole bar was singing a part that na 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 na. So they were singing "Hey Jude," and I was like, it's so like and everyone was singing, and I just thought. Maybe that's just circling back to why the music thing. It's like
It brings everybody together.
There's a common thing that
Yeah,
people
no doubt.
that people do, and I just feel like, I'm gonna end it with the same idea that when you do the 23andMe and you see all these different things that you're made out of, it doesn't say European Catholic or Protestant or any of that stuff. It was like I just thought it was interesting that the Jew was actually a race. It was actually genetically, who I was versus the rest was Scottish, English, 2% Iceland. Who would have thought? But anyway, that I think is,
Kevin
that is the
a
thing.
Viking Jew.
Yes, I am.
A Viking Jew.
A Viking Jew.
Yes, I am probably larger than most. A giant Jew is what Peter calls me.
A giant.
A
Peter
giant.
who?
You are larger
Huh?
than the
Peter
average.
Glick.
Peter Glick. Oh, we should have had Peter Glick as part of our conversation.
Well, I'm meeting him after this, so we could extend. Well, I
These were
could just
good.
do it. I can just do it with my
These
phone.
were good conversations.
Well,
this is
I
the end of our
appreciate-
day.
Yes, I appreciate.
We're beat.
Well, we
talked a
should.
lot.
We did a
We
lot.
should. In honor of, I'm going to say me. In honor of me, we're going to have a celebratory joint like that. Well,
We'll do it.
and we don't know.
Should we
They
just bring
might
a
have.
camera out
They
and
might
say,
have done
bring a
this.
Just to get some candid.
Yeah.
They might have done this, like out in the desert while
Uh-huh.
there was the unleavened bread was being done.
Yeah.
They could have been smoking a
I'm
joint.
gonna run to the bathroom.
They could've.
before we.
And luckily,
That's
weirdly
hysterical.
that I thought to go before here and get
Yo.
4
And you think you
brand
were
new
pranked?
new ones. Well,
With this
you
thing?
have no idea. No, not in the sense that when you map this, you have no idea how it tells you to go.
What did you tell you
It
to
brought
go?
me all the way through the park. If I was
That's
like,
how I drive. It's the best. It's the best.
and it was
way.
nice, but I was just like, I just have never been in the park like that. Like
No,
that
I
before.
drive through the park
In fact,
every
you know
day.
that my parents' ashes are in the water of the basin of the art museum.
No, wait. That's what they wanted to be?
That's where my mom wanted to be, and then my mom.
Were your parents art collectors?
No, my mom. Oh, yeah, they were. No, sorry, they were. I shouldn't say
I mean,
that.
like,
yeah,
who-
no,
who
they
got-
did. They had
who-
major
who,
art, more Western.
Who informed your art? Like, who got you on the art? Like, I always credit my mother with, starting me with food, like being the first inspiration. And
You know, I gotta be honest with you. My parents, I've had this weird discussion. They never told me to do.
Not about doing, but like,
No,
were you surrounded with art? Were you?
Yes.
Your house was a house where
Yes.
there was art on the wall.
Yes, my parents were collectors for sure. Yes, 100%.
Because for me, it's so like.
And my mom, by the way, my mom was the most incredible. You don't understand. My mom would cater. My mom, everybody. My mom did it all naturally. But my mom was a fantastic cook. I later, I never appreciated it at the time, but she really was.